So guys, before we get started, don't forget we do have that amazing discount code thanks to Tier 0 Games going on right now. And all you have to do is put in ZWGames5 to get 5% discount on your total order at tier0games.com. The links will be in the description below, so check those out for massive discounts on all your Hidden Summoner needs as well as all your other Yu-Gi-Oh needs. But let's get on with the profile.
What's up YouTube, Dad here from Zephyr Wargames, bringing you not just our 1000th video, yeah that's right, we have done 1000 videos for you guys at home, but we're also going to bring you our brand New Year's Eve video, and that is 10 of the best cards of 2018, and my gosh has there been loads, absolutely loads of new cards that have all been very decent. So I've talked you through with the other Zephyr guys, and we've kind of gone through a list, and we've comprised a list of 10 cards that we feel are the best of this year, and we've kind of taken a lot into account, the playability of it, how useful it is against multiple decks, not just one deck, how useful it is in one deck over multiple decks, stuff like that. We do have an honourable mention pile that I'll get to towards the end of the list as well, just so that we haven't left anything out, and we'll explain why, or I'll explain why they haven't made the list and why some have. So, without further ado, let's start with number 10. Now, number 10 is this guy, Linkuriboh. Now, this might be a little bit different because the US, I believe the US got it before 2018. We got it in the starter deck, one of the first starter decks of the year, so it was very important, and it helped out Altergeist as well. But the reason Linkuriboh comes in at number 10 is it was a good generic card for all decks that played level 1 cards, and a lot of decks started to play level 1 cards just to get into Linkuriboh because his effect is very powerful. The fact to reduce your opponent's attack to 0 and then resurrect it from the graveyard was very useful, and kind of got past certain monsters that you couldn't usually deal with. It also meant that we didn't have to no longer use that blooming card Car and Riskier for Altergeist, which is a nice little touch up and change on that one. Now number 9 is, it's difficult really, because the number 9 is this girl. This girl here, Summon Sorceress. Now, we in the UK have only just got this. We've got this in the special editions of Soul Fusion, so we can't really give you our full expectations on it, but I've kind of looked into the American meta and the American usage of this card as well. Now, the reason this is in number 9 is A, because we haven't had enough to use and abuse it with as of yet. I think it will become more important and more powerful next year if we get Needle Fiber in the Savage Strike, which kind of makes sense considering it's a synchro set. You would like to think that Needle Fiber will be a nice little push for that deck. Summon Sorceress, while we've got it at the moment, is still very powerful. I just don't feel enough decks at this moment in time have been able to utilise it to the way that they would like to, and I don't feel it's as big or better than the cards that come above it, which is why I've kind of justified putting it down. It is relatively budget and cheap for everyone to get hold of because you can get it in the special editions now, and then of course, like I said, I don't feel us in the UK or Europe have had enough time to test with her as of yet. So number 8, this should become no surprise to most people, and that is Heavy Metal Foe's Elektra Might. This card took Pendulum Magicians and brought them from MR3 and put them into MR4, and as you saw with the amount of tops that have been going around as well at the time, and the fact that it's now at 1 on the list as well, kind of proves that this card was incredibly powerful for Pendulums. It didn't really revitalise Metal Foes as much as it could, but it was a nice generic kind of Pendulum addition that just made Pendulum Magicians just explode. They were so much better with Heavy Metal Foe's Elektra Might. The draw effect, the set up your scout effect, the return from the scout effect, it had pretty much everything, which is why it sits nicely at number 8. Now, moving on to number 7, we do have Nightmare Goblin. Now, this could have been multiples of any of the Nightmares, like Phoenix and Unicorn mainly. But Goblin, there's a reason Goblin is now banned, and it was the first Link monster, I believe, to get banned on the kind of TCG's ban list. Now, there is a reason for this. The only downside that I saw of Goblin was its link markers, the fact that it pointed left and right. But then that was also used and abused in a positive way as well. Now, Goblin opened up many doors for many decks. You could see Goblin being played in Spirals. It brought Spirals back, if you were interested in Spirals coming back or not. Obviously, of course, the Goki lockout, as well as, of course, Element Sabers as well, It was just a nice generic card that if you didn't want to use a Seraphonite, you would use Goblin. And certain things like Zombie Swans and anything that can make the Link 2 that gave the ability of pointing left and down. So as soon as you went into like a Link Karibo or an Underclock Taker or anything like that, you would then unlock the Goblin. Not to mention the Goblin's effect that cards couldn't be targeted that were co-linked to it. So it made the U-Link of death, in my opinion. When you had stuff like Trigate, Cerberus, Phoenix, and Goblin all in the centre and heart of that, that just tipped it over the edge, which made it incredibly powerful, which is why it was then banned. Which is why you can justifiably say that it deserved to be at number 7. Now, number 6 is one of the brand new cards that we got in Soul Fusion, and that was Irrational Pranker. Now, the reason that this is above the rest is it is A, budget, very, very cheap and easy to get hold of, and B, it gets you out of anything. If it was just destroy a monster or destroy a back row, it wouldn't be that great. But the fact that you can special summon it and then destroy anything on the board. So if you're locked under Imperial Order, this card gets you out of it. If you're locked under a Goten or Rivalry, as long as you control no other monsters, this will get you out of it. If you was locked under Zombie World, this will get you out of it. If there was a monster that was causing you issues, this would get you out of it. This card is incredibly powerful, very, very useful, and I expect to see it in a lot of side decks coming up into 2019. In 2018, it hasn't done as much yet, but it's still very, very powerful, and it was a nice introduction to get. Like I said, being able to out any floodgate in the game that you could possibly be faced up against in the form of a monster, as well as being a nice 2600 beta and a level 7, and the fact you just special summon it for free was crazy. So definitely worth its place at number 6. And then moving on to number 5. Now, number 5, some people might be a bit iffy on this one and not agree with it, but we've gone with Borel Sword. Now, the reason Borel Sword is at number 5 is it's not cheap to get hold of. It really isn't. But we kind of made sure that what we would see on our list was if everything was at the same price, where would we put it? And Borel Sword's effect is just too powerful. The fact that it can't be destroyed by battle, it can steal half of an opponent's attack, it can shift a card in defense to make another attack, it just pushes so much for game. It's such a powerful card. I do not believe that it is worth its price tag at this moment. Its price tag at this moment in time is something like 90 to 100 quid. I think some people are getting rid of them in America for about 80 odd dollars. It still blows my mind how expensive that card is right now. But it's justifiable. It wins games. And that's the difference between 10th place and 5th place. It wins games. It is so powerful. The 3k base, it's just... If it had any differences, like if it's link marker, no longer link marker pointed upwards, it'd be better. If you changed anything on that card, it would become better. Even if you dropped its attack to 2500, the fact that it can't be destroyed by battle and then still steals half of your opponent's attack just makes it absolutely crazy and unreal, which is why it deserved to be in the top 5. In my opinion, it didn't go higher than top 5. I'm going to explain why when we get into these next cards here. So our next card, sitting at number 4, is this beauty here, and that is Sky Striker Mecha Hornet Drones. Now, the reason Drone sits at 4 is not only did it get hit to 1 on the ban list, the fact that it opened up so many plays for multiple decks. Now, of course, if you played Engage, it became more consistent. However, stuff like Invoked, with the Sky Striker engine, so Mech Knight Invoked became so much more powerful. Using Hornet Drones, it got given into OTKs. It was just so consistent, incredibly powerful, and being able to end your board with a Borel Sword, Hayate, and a Mech Ball was just absolutely mind-blowing. It was so powerful. Not to mention the effect it had in its own Sky Striker deck, and then any other deck. So in a Crusadia deck, it turned the deck up another level. It made the OTKs a bit more consistent. It allowed you to get into the Link 2 straight away, so you bypassed the first link unless you needed its effect to search. It could then be used and abused in any deck. Any deck that didn't have a standard straight up board presence, or if you had the ability to search drones or anything like that, allowed you to get the stepping stone to go past the Link 1, straight into a Link 2 for pretty much nothing. Not to mention they weren't hard once per turn, so you could chain a drone to another drone, to a third drone if you had it, and already you've got a Link 4 on board with an additional normal summon that you play in your deck anyway. So drones definitely deserves to be on the list, and definitely deserves to be on the ban list the way it is right now. It is an incredibly powerful card, and it gets made better with stuff like Engage. Now moving on to number 3, we have Isolde, the Noble Knight. Now Isolde, the reason Isolde is still up there is because it came out in EXO. When I was doing the research on this, I couldn't believe that we got it this year. It is so powerful. The fact that it can summon pretty much any warrior monster from your deck is crazy. It not only aided Gokis, it not only aided Noble Knights in a little bit of addition, but it's also contributed towards Rongo Bongo Turbo. It contributes towards PKs, Destiny Heroes, normal heroes, any warrior deck out there. Any warrior deck out there can use and abuse this card. Whether you're sending 1 equip spell, 3 equip spells, 4 equip spells, anything, this card used and abused it. Now the reason this is higher than stuff like Borel Sword is it is A, a lot easier to get hold of, B, it spent more time in the meta only because it's been out longer. I think if Borel Sword came out at the start of the year, Borel Sword will still be out there. The fact it's a Link 2 means it's used and abused a hell of a lot more as well. I just feel that Isolde was incredibly powerful and definitely contributed to the whole Goki hype that we had as well. And part of me was disappointed when it was doing so well with the Gokis, because I was like, I still want it for Noble Knights. It's actually very, very good in Noble Knights, but if it's doing so well, there is a chance that it will get hit. And with something like Isolde, you don't just go, we're going to drop it to 1. You have to go, we ban it outright. Same with Goblin. Anything that's usually in an extra deck, you can't really go, right, we're going to drop it down to 1. They've done it in the past, but what I mean is you can't go, we'll drop it down to 1, because the player base isn't really going to be too fussed about that. Because cards like this, like Exile Knight and Construct, if you still had them at 1, the decks are still playable. It was still usable and abusable as it was before it was at 1. So you do have to ban these cards, which is why my concern with Isolde, I was like, no, stop, like, I get it, it's so good, but stop using and abusing it. I want it for my Noble Knights, don't ban it, please, please, please. And then of course Konami came up with a great idea of, we're going to reprint Isolde, so we're going to keep it around because we want to sell our special editions. So I suppose on the bright side, that was a very, very good thing to happen. Okay, number 2. Number 2, quite a few people will be surprised that it isn't the top spot, and that is Infinite Impermanence. This card is crazy good. It's very, very powerful. Not only did people try and find ways of getting the FTK to be protected with Azathoth, Impermanence was a way of getting around that. The fact that it shuts off in the column it's played into as well when it's set is very, very powerful, because it means you can turn off certain floodgates if you play your columns correctly. The fact that it can be activated during your hand, from your hand, for free, very, very powerful, and can then give additional boost to cards like Multi-Faker in the Altergeist deck, and of course like Dark Magician of Black Chaos in the Dark Magician deck. The fact that it would give you additional turn 0 card that was not so necessarily dead under stuff like Card of Demise, and then like I said, the fact that you could shut off columns, it's understandable why it's at the price that it is, and kind of makes sense. Unfortunately, why we can't have nice things, but it does get a reprint next year in one of the sets, so stay tuned for our video on upcoming sets for 2019 as well. So Infinite Impermanence gets our number 2 spot. Now, before we get on to number 1, I am going to bring out some honourable mentions. Now these are cards that didn't quite break into the top 10 this year, have more support coming out next year, or they kind of catered towards one specific deck and didn't have the variety that the rest of these cards have. So those cards are stuff like the Incantations. Incantations brought back so many ritual decks. It made Necros more playable, it's made Cyber Angels better, it's also made Shino Birds better, and they get more support next year. And I think when the New Year support comes in, that will make them even better than they are now. So the fact is they've just kept improving and improving and improving. They weren't powerful enough to get into a top 10 because unfortunately ritual decks just aren't as explosive as they used to be. But it still deserves an honourable mention. Continuing on with that, we do have some of the other Nightmares. Now the Nightmare Corrupt Ibli, Nightmare Phoenix and Nightmare Unicorn. Unicorn and Phoenix are nice staples that should pretty much be in most people's extra decks, definitely Phoenix. Nightmare Corrupt Ibli was more of a fast starter and has kind of slowed down as the game has gone. The fact that it locked you out apart from Link Summoning, the fact that it had a 0 defense was crazy, and it just made the U-Link so much more worse when you got given Ibli as well. Obviously, like I said, it started off so fast and then drifted out towards the end, which is why it didn't make our top 10. Of course, we have Altergeist Multi-Faker. This card was very, very powerful and useful, but it only served the purpose of one deck. It was only used and abused in Altergeist. Now, it did take Altergeist from a casual play deck to nearly meta deck. It hasn't had enough breakthrough because it does suffer the same feeling that any kind of deck that is like Altergeist face, and that is they must go first. They have to set up their back row. They have to go first. If they don't go first, they're in a hell of a lot of an uphill struggle, and they can really, really find each game difficult. So because it only catered to alt guys, that is why Multifaker didn't break into our top 10. You've also got Gumbler Dragon. Now the reason Gumbler Dragon isn't in the top 10 is because it added towards some degenerate kind of hand loops and stuff like that, but that was its main kind of port of call. It hasn't really done huge amounts more, and it's only just seen a bit more play now that Firewall is banned. So we didn't really see that it justified being in the top 10. Some of the other cards we've got on this list as well for honourable mentions is of course Thunder Dragon Colossus, the one card walk-in mistake that is Colossus with its own built-in protection. Again, the fact that it only worked with one specific deck at this moment in time, yes, the engine can be splashed into other decks, but because it was so focused around a Thunder Dragon deck and you had to play Thunder cards and you had to, you know, tribute off certain cards as well to get its effect off, meant that it wasn't as generic to be able to be pushed into the top 10. Just checking my list over here, we've got Engage as well. Ghost Bell. Engage is quite self-explanatory. Pretty much the fact that it wasn't once per turn you could use and abuse it. If you had 3 spells in graveyard, you drew one was insane. So you were getting a +1 off of it every time because you were searching, which covered the Engage use, and then you were drawing one as well. You've then got the Ghost Bell. Ghost Bell, in my opinion, hasn't been as successful as Ghost Ogre first was, or as useful as Reaper was, and definitely not as staple as Ashes. So Ghost Bell is definitely very, very good. I just don't feel that it warranted breaking into the top 10. Then of course, no list is complete without mentioning of course the TCG exclusive, and that is Dangers. Now Dangers are a very, very good archetype, and we had to kind of narrow it down to one card, in my opinion, that might have broken into the top 10, but just missed out, and that was Danger Nessie. The fact that all of the reveal effects were so powerful and could get past certain floodgates, could still be played under Draw and Lockbird, because the outcome isn't guaranteed, made them very, very good, which is why the FTK was so easily doable alongside, of course, that troublesome Firewall. On top of that, Nessie kind of pipped the rest, because Nessie was a great card that you could use going first or second, giving you that additional search. Stuff like Jackalope was also very, very good, but Nessie giving you that search led you to not only if it was summoned successfully draw your card, but if it was discarded, you then got to replenish your hand as well by putting another danger in your hand that you needed to push your plays further forward. Anyway, that is it for our honourable mention section. Now on to that #1 spot, that glorious spot, the best card of 2018. In my opinion, there was no other than, of course, Called by the Grave. This card, in 2 ban lists, got put onto the ban list at 2, and then came straight back off the ban list going back to 3. Now this card is insane. It's what most players have been asking for, and the best thing about it, they printed it as a super rare special edition card or a common, which made it easily accessible for all of those out there that were budget players that couldn't get hold of the Ashes, couldn't get hold of the Ogres, but still had a tough time dealing with those type of cards as they were trying to play friendlies or if they were trying to play for fun. So Called by the Grave was a nice card that can only have gone, here you go, everyone can have this, and you could stop every single hand trap in the game. On top of that, it then became a version of DD Crow for monsters, so that any graveyard effects that wanted to reoccur you would banish, and that would deal with any of your problems. On top of that, not only did it negate it for your opponent's turn the turn they activated it, but also for your turn as well, which means you can activate it, but it also means they can activate it as well. So Called by the Grave was an incredibly powerful card. The fact that it ticks all the boxes, it dealt with the issue that we were having. So many hand traps were being used and abused, and some of the budget players that couldn't get hold of Ashes and Ogres and Reapers and everything like that were able to have a way of stopping those cards going off and still continue to play the game. Number 2, it was very, very powerful. It stopped all those cards. It was budget, it was cheap, it was easy. It's had 2 prints already. It's very, very easy to pick up. I would not be surprised if it gets like a secret rare or even an ultimate rare OTS printing in the future. So that then begs the question, can Maxi come back? You know, we never know until the next ban list, which is due to hit us in January. Anyway, so that is our top 10 cards of 2018 with, of course, some honourable mentions. Now, I hope you all have a very, very good New Year's Eve and a very, very good New Year's. Moving us on into 2019, where we have so much Yu-Gi-Oh stuff coming for us, it is crazy. We've got crazy reprint sets, we've got great first turn sets, we have the expectations of new Link monsters coming out of Link Vrains 2, and hopefully finishing off the cards we haven't got from Link Vrains run yet. So, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. And until next time, guys, as always, have a very happy New Year. and we'll see you in 2019. Happy dueling.
What's up YouTube, thanks for watching that video. I hope you liked it. If you did, hit that like button, and of course don't forget to hit that big red subscribe button in the bottom left hand corner and the notification bell so you don't miss out on anything. We've got more deck profiles, duels, pack openings and many more Yu-Gi-Oh videos coming up for you all year round, so don't forget to stay tuned for all of that. Thanks, and as always guys, happy dueling.